Rick Monday was a center fielder who played from 1966 to 1984 for the Kansas City Athletics, the Oakland A's, the Cubs, and then finally the Dodgers. He's probably most well remembered for preventing two protesters from burning an American flag during a game in 1976. First of all, Mike, sports history collector, thanks for coming on. I've watched your YouTube channel for a while. I specifically remember a couple of videos of yours. One, the Thurman Munson video that you did a while back. I think you called it like Mystery Catcher when you were breaking down his stats. And I was really interested in Thurman. I think he was my second or third video that I ever did on YouTube. And then I was interested in your Rick Monday video and impressed with that. And I had been wanting to do a video on Rick Monday. He's worth discussing for a couple of reasons. I won't spend a lot of time on the things that you've already covered. I will say I'll provide a link to Mike's video. It's definitely worth checking out, especially since we're just going to kind of touch on the flag burning incident a little bit here. But Mike, you're in California, correct?
Yes, I am.
Are you a Dodgers fan?
Well, I grew up a Dodger fan. I was a Dodger fan probably from the late 60s all the way to the early 80s. My job transferred me from Los Angeles to San Diego just in time to see Tony Gwynn's career. And of course, the uptick of the Padres in the standings. So, but before they even were good, I just watching Tony Gwynn, I decided, well, I'm down here in San Diego. I might as well just start rooting for the Padres. And funny thing is, I rooted for them so hard that I kind of started to dislike the Dodgers.
Well, it's kind of funny how that works out geographically because I was not a Braves fan until I moved to Atlanta. And it took about 5 years for me to accept them. But that's the power of living in an area where they have dominant TV coverage.
Oh, yeah.
So I was born in 71, so I don't actually remember the incident in 1976. But Rick, while he was playing for the Dodgers, there were two protesters that ran out onto the field attempting to burn the American flag in 1976. And Rick was a former Marine, so he obviously was not having any part of that. And again, I'll keep this short. You need to watch Mike's video. He did a good job summarizing that. But that being said, he did save the flag, and he considers it one of his most valuable possessions, Rick does. And the game wasn't televised. A fan actually captured that on Super 8.
Two of them. All right. I'm not sure what he's doing out there. It looks like he's going to burn a flag, and Rick Monday runs and takes it away from him. And so Monday, I think a guy was going to set fire to the American flag. Can you imagine that? Well, they better lose him in a hurry. And Monday, when he realized what he was going to do, raced over and took the flag away from him.
But Rick is much more than just this one incident. He was a good ball player, and Mike, I guess he's a Dodgers broadcaster. I didn't know that before researching. Is he either a TV guy or the radio guy?
I think he did a little of both. He came on after I had already moved along. He was still actually playing the tail end of his career. Mm-hmm. But I think he came on. The Dodgers always did, because of course Dodgers had Vin Scully, right, and then they had Jerry Doggett also, and it was always Vinny doing mostly the radio, and then he'd take a couple innings off, and Jerry Doggett would come in. Then they got Rick Monday, and I know that, and I think he kind of did both, but Vin Scully had the lion's share of everything, pretty much.
Yeah, Dodgers fans have it. They have it really, really well with that for decades having Vin, and then Rick Monday. I know Fernando Valenzuela does the Spanish broadcasts on radio there. So very
Rick Monday does have that great voice. He's got that nice deep, like made for radio voice.
Yeah, there are certain guys. We have a guy here in Atlanta, Ben Ingram, who's got a tremendous radio voice, and it's the sound of summer for me.
Yeah, it's amazing how those broadcasters, they bring back a lot of memories, especially from your childhood. Probably you were probably too young for like the transistor radio, listening to
No, not too young at all. No, my grandfather had one. He kept in his pocket, and so it was big when I got my first quote unquote boombox, and I listened to Ernie Harwell on AM radio, AM 760 WJR, and Ernie Harwell was awesome. He was great, and similar to Scully. Scully was there forever, and for me, it was Harwell was there forever, my whole childhood. So
kids don't know what they're missing by not having the transistor radio, and it just, I know it seems silly today probably to them, but it just was something magical about it. Trying to sneak the transistor radio into bed and listening to the game, or into school to hear the World Series was just a lot of fun.
Well, I did a video with a friend of mine, Brian, on Herb Score, and so Brian's a big Cleveland fan, and he and I were talking about laying in bed and listening. In his case, listening to the Indians on the radio, and that was me listening to my little junky alarm clock, listening to Ernie Harwell late at night, trying to stay up and make it to the ninth inning. But yeah, man, those are great memories for sure.
Yeah.
So the Dodgers have a great history. I was never really a Dodger fan growing up. Obviously, things were different back then. You had your the teams that you played on a regular basis that you could see. For me, growing up in Detroit, it was the AL East, and then once a week, you would try and catch whatever you could on This Week in Baseball. And whatever Mel Allen wanted to tell you that was the that encompassed everything else that you could possibly learn without looking at the box scores, because there was very poor nationwide sports coverage back then.
Yeah.
So for me, I touched on this. I know I sent you a document beforehand. One of the things that interested me that I'd like to talk about with you, I don't know how many people realize that he was the very first pick in the very first Major League Baseball draft.
1965, right?
Yes. So 1965. And I was interested, and I went back through Baseball Reference, and I was looking at, number one picks historically don't fare well.
Right.
Baseball is a completely different animal from the NBA. The NBA, the number one pick, is almost a gimme, and they're going to have a good career. Baseball is still a crapshoot, and always has been a crapshoot. But when I look back at number one picks through the years, it took 66, 7. Let's see. It wasn't until 1977, so 12, 13 years later, where we had a number one pick that had a higher career WAR. And that was Harold Baines with 38.8, the great Hall of Famer Harold Baines.
Great Hall of Famer.
But WAR isn't the measure of everything. I'm not one of those guys who thinks that WAR it's just another stat. It doesn't mean Harold Baines is any better than Rick Monday to me.
I'm still old school. Batting average, runs batted in, runs scored. I think it's great, some of these newer stats, your WARs and your whatever, WAR plus this and this plus that, and but sometimes it's to me it just reminds me of a lot of times people that never played the game, because there's a lot more to be said to a player than stats. And,
well, there's 100%. There's not even one WAR. There's Fangraphs WAR, and then there's B WAR, and there's still subjective measurements in there. One of the things I've been interested in discussing with somebody, and you're going to be my guinea pig here, is I don't understand the legalities of the draft to begin with. And since Rick is the first number one pick ever, I wonder if I'm just way off my rocker here, or what you think. Because I think I mentioned you in what I sent you over email. if you were the top accountant coming out of University of Georgia, does it seem right that KPMG and Accenture, or Ernst & Young should be able to decide which one of them gets to hire you? Or do you think you should be able to pick which team you go to based on what they're offering? So what do you think?
Yeah, okay, I do have a strong opinion. Well, maybe it's a strong wishy-washy opinion. I absolutely agree that if I came out of college and I'd be rather upset and be wondering if it was legal if the top accounting firm, in Los Angeles said, "Okay, you're our pick. Sorry, and here's your starting salary because this is where you're slotted as the first pick."
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have to say that. Just that would seem silly to anybody. So, but the problem with baseball is that, well, I can sum it up in one word: Yankees.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yankees pretty much were dominant in signing anybody they wanted, all over the country from, the 20s or 10s even, all the way up till we had the draft. And we also had, they wanted to expand. In that regard, those teams would never have a chance to get any better, because they'd never get the good players. So I think that was part of the reason. Is it fundamentally right? I'd say no. You hear a lot in sports, but especially baseball, of parity kind of, you got to at least give the small market teams a chance.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what the solution would be to that, though.
I don't either. I understand everything that you're saying. I do think in the end, the market would figure out, other teams would be able to figure it out. I don't know how exactly. To your point, the Yankees did win a ton of championships back when their hands were free to sign whoever they wanted. But I do think in the end, we kind of have that system now with free agency anyways. The Dodgers can pretty much, speaking of the Dodgers, was anybody surprised that Ohtani went there? They took Freddie Freeman from us. I know that the Dodgers are going to sign Max Fried in the offseason. So, we're kind of there anyways. I'm not sure that things would change a whole lot. I do think there are certain other drafts that I do believe in. I don't know if I'm being contradictory or not. The Rule 5 draft, I'm a big believer in, so that somebody doesn't get stuck in the minor leagues. I remember a personal story. The Savannah Sandgnats used to play in Savannah before the Bananas were there. And the Sandgnats at the time I went to see them, they were part of the Giants organization. And if you ever go to a minor league baseball game, you can get pretty up close to those guys. And I was talking to their bullpen catcher, and he was crying to me basically about how they had Buster Posey. He's like, "We're never going to get up." He's like, "It's never going to happen." From his point of view, I totally understood it. Like, there's just there's no movement. So I do believe in the Rule 5 draft. I like the expansion draft when they have expansions and things like that. But yeah, I have a problem with the draft system, and I'm not sure that I've articulated it very well. But just
that's a good point you brought up about once players become free agents, then all bets are off. They can go anywhere they want, the highest bidder. The only thing is that let's say a team selects that player in the draft. Let's give Juan Soto for an example. The Nationals weren't going to be able to re-sign him, or they didn't feel like they were going to be able to re-sign him. So they were able to trade him to the Padres in return for some valuable picks, or at least they felt were valuable. And then the Padres were the same way. They weren't going to be able to re-sign him, so they were able to trade him to the Yankees. So at least they got something for it, and hopefully they got known quantities for it. But also back to your point that first round draft picks traditionally have not been, necessarily great. Right. Whether it's because they just were a flop, or because scouting didn't do the proper job of saying, this, I mean, that's throughout history when the scouting, they pick the wrong players, or they've been looking for one thing and they didn't see another. It's a tough question.
It's an interesting. I think it's an interesting question to debate. I would like to see some other people. I don't have a big voice on YouTube. I would like to see some of these other guys get into a debate about it and see what they have to think. Dan would be a good one since he's a lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to see what his opinion is. I'll have to send him a text and see what he has to say. But yeah, so Rick, back to Rick real quick. So he was not drafted by the Dodgers. He was drafted by the Athletics, I believe.
Yeah, yes. Oakland A's.
And so I had read that he grew up in California, and he was a high school phenom in Santa Monica. And that's right. Okay, so he was being scouted by Tommy Lasorda, who was a Dodger scout at the time, and they kind of had a almost like a verbal agreement that the Dodgers would sign him. But before that was a possibility, the MLB instituted the draft. And so Tommy didn't get that chance, and he ended up going to the Athletics. Things, eventually worked out, and he did end up with the Dodgers, as we know. But back again to the not having the freedom of choice to sign with the team that he really wanted to sign with. And two attorneys approached him, basically offering to represent him in lawsuits against MLB to fight the draft. And when Rick asked, how long do you think that's going to take? And they said 3 or 4 years. He said, no, thanks. I'll take the money and I'll play. So no surprise. You can't expect a kid just out of college to take on, the same onus that Curt Flood kind of took on at the end of his career. So I would like to see you have some Rick Monday memorabilia. I'm wondering if you would be willing to share the photograph that you have.
Yeah, on the video that I made, I actually showed the actual signed photo, unframed, unmatted, and stuff. But I have not got a chance yet to show it since I've had it matted and framed. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to show it here as a kind of an exclusive.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah, it's nice.
Awesome. Do you know the source of that photograph? Is that a still taken from the video, or did a photographer grab that?
No. This was Herald Examiner, which was one of the two major papers in Los Angeles. It was one of their photographers who shot it with a long lens, and he had it on a speed shooter, what they call them, and he shot several things. And this was obviously see if I get a little more. That's so much glare, but
yeah, no.
So I had to go with it was the white frame, but I used blue and red matting with a little gold in it, so we get the red, white, and blue in there.
Absolutely beautiful. So where are you putting this?
This is when in the hallway downstairs, which my wife generously offered to let me have for some more of my wall memorabilia. Those would be the bigger. It's not a real big wall space on both sides of the hallway, but I've got some other big things that I do not have framed and matted yet, and actually a couple of them aren't even finished yet. But 1934 Gas House Game Cardinals is complete, just needs to be framed and matted. 1919 Black Sox, I keep finding new things to put towards that, so it hasn't finished. Also working on a Pride of the Yankees movie, framed with all the different actors and some ball players that were in the movie, autographs and stuff. And that's going to be kind of large too, but it should all fit down there.
Wow. So I see an American flag over your shoulder. What's the story there?
That's the one I use in most of my when I do videos on ball players, especially ones in World War II that were in the world that also played ball. But that's from my wife's dad. He was in World War II as well. It was used during his funeral.
I'm really interested in World War II. I've done a number of videos on players in World War II. I'm actually going to be filming another one on a couple of guys who died on D-Day.
Yeah, I found I've done several now of the players, and originally I was just going to do. Actually, I kind of just came on to the doing the World War II players. I didn't honestly realize there were so many of them.
Yeah.
And I happened to hear a story of Lucky Lorky, who was he like escaped near death or death experiences several times in the war and even afterwards. And the story was so fascinating that I found a signed card of his, and I did that. And then I came upon another one, and I'm thinking. So then I just started doing research, and all these players started coming out. So I've got this what I thought was going to be something that was going to keep me going, maybe a couple episodes a month for maybe 6 months. I've got a list that probably lasts me 5 years. And that's, besides all the other stuff that I got. So I try to kind of intersperse things, so people don't get bored.
Yeah.
The few people that watch my channel.
Well, I watch it.
So, well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. There are a few channels that I really like because I can only watch so many guys doing SGC reveals. I want to know the history. And so there are Dan's show is really good. I always learn something on his show. Clean Cheap Shots is another one. If you know Drew.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, he's good. I learn stuff while I'm laying in bed at night trying to go to sleep. I'm watching baseball videos instead. So it's not really the best way to fall asleep. But my wife always says screens off. But
turn that transistor off. Turn that TV off.
That's right. It's today's transistor radio, isn't it? It's that stupid iPhone.
Yeah.
So one of the things, speaking of baseball cards, a friend of mine, Sean, who I've had on my show a couple times, he's building the 52 top set.
Oh, yeah.
And he's quite a ways along. He's got the Pathco. I don't think he has the Eddie Matthews yet. I'm not sure. I don't think he has Jackie or Mantle yet. But he's got a couple hundred at least. So he's moving along. But I did not realize how expensive Eddie Matthews' rookie card was. It is the last card in the 52 tops set. And yeah, so it's a high number, plus it's the last card, so it's often is damaged.
Rubber bands.
Yeah. So where am I going with this? Back in when I was 9 years old or 10 years old, collecting 1981 tops, I specifically remember Rick Monday. I didn't know who the guy was, but my Rick Monday, he's the last card in the 1981 baseball card set. And so I would keep them in the cardboard boxes that you would keep sets in back in the day. And my Rick Monday just took a severe beating. And so back then, we were smart enough to understand the importance of condition, but I didn't have eBay, and my parents weren't going to take me to card shows an hour away. So for me, it was either I had to pull it out of a pack, or I had to find a way to trade for Rick Monday on the 4th grade playground. And that was the battle for me that summer, was to find the best Rick Monday I could. And I had no idea who the guy was, but it stuck with me forever. That stupid Rick Monday card. I don't think I ever got a mint one, but yeah, that was fun. Baseball cards are kind of what got me into the history of the game, reading the backs of the baseball cards, finding out all the stupid little, Bob is a fantastic billiards player in the off season, things like that. I love those things.
Bill was an insurance salesman.
Yeah, I mean, remember back then, because they had the strike midway through the 81 season, and one of the things I remember was one of our local players, Rich Hebner, during the strike, he went back to digging graves. That's what he did. He dug graves.
Grave digger.
Yeah, he's a grave digger. And I just remember, I was 10 years old thinking, that is insane. Like a baseball player?
Not really. when you think about it, people are dying to get in there.
Oh,
Boom, boom.
I'm guessing that you're a dad.
No, but I've got some dad jokes. Though.
You got the dad jokes, yes. But yeah, that could you imagine Shohei Ohtani having to go dig graves for the summer while the baseball's on strike?
No,
So,
and can you imagine trying to put some kind of blurb on the back of a card these days? Like, in the off season, Ohtani spent $500,000 on a Maserati.
or,
I mean,
or his interpreter spent.
yes.
I appreciate your time. I really enjoy your channel, and again, I'll provide links to Mike's channel down below. He's great. Appreciate your time, Mike.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and I really enjoy your channel as well.
Thanks,
It's
man.
like you were saying. I enjoy the history of the game,
Yeah.
and hearing stories and tidbits of stuff. It's like, oh, I never knew that. That's that's the best part of my day when I see videos and hear stuff like that. So,
yeah, me too. Okay, thanks, Mike.
thank you.